All right, welcome everyone. I am Dr. Toya Davis, and this is Aligned, Liberated, and Abundant. And today I have another guest, and I'm so excited to introduce her to you all. But before we get there, just let you know if you're in the right place. So, Aligned, Liberated, and Abundant, we are all about empowering and talking to high achieving women who feels that they've done all of the things, right? You've made the money, you've gotten the titles, you've checked off all of the boxes that you have learned that you needed to check off, and still you feel that there is more, that there's something missing, that there might be some type of path or purpose that you are not quite following. We're here to support you in that journey and give you tips, tools, and practical ways to live a life of alignment, liberation, and abundance. So, our guest today is, I'm so excited because I don't want to say I'm a self-proclaimed introvert. Introversion found me. I didn't find it, right? So, I am an introvert, and Saira Nisa is the owner of Incredible Introverts. And my little lovely screen closed on me. And she is what she considers a bit of a rebel introvert. She makes visibility effortless and fun for introverted female online entrepreneurs who are holding themselves back and remaining invisible introverts. So I am happy again to introduce her, and I'm going to let her give a little bit more detail about who she is and kind of how she shows up in the world. So thank you again so much, Saira, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me and for inviting me. This is an honor for me to be sitting here in your space and sharing your space with you. So thank you so much for sharing the space with me as well. So yes, as I've been so wonderfully introduced, I can't top that myself. I do consider myself a bit of a rebel introvert, and I founded Incredible Introverts. And I love the way you said that introversion found you, because sometimes I think that can be the case, that depending on how you've been raised, perhaps the introversion does actually end up finding you. Whereas had you been left to your own devices, we don't know, would we have been introverted? We might have been ambiverts or extroverts. And Incredible Introvert stems from really my experiences, my expertise, my career experience, what I've been through personally, professionally as well. And so it really stems from, with introverts, we're known for probably not very positive connotations. It's usually negative. We can't network, we can't socialize, we don't want to socialize, we can't socialize. We're effectively made out to be lone rangers or social recluses, essentially. And I've always thought, yeah, sure, I went along with it. I went along with what the narrative was out there. Am I shy? Yeah, I'm shy. Can I be anxious? Yes, I'm an anxious introvert. And I went along with those avatars that have been around for so long. Um, you might have heard of the Jungian theory, where there's four avatars of introverts, and so two of them, being anxious, being reserved, being shy as well, or that's three, and there's a fourth one which escapes me because I've tried to forget them. And so I played into that. I think part of it was me playing into it, and part of it was also my experience of growing up in a household where actually DV was a regular thing. So we grew up with sort of the fear, like a serious, very real fear inside of us. And so, walking around the house was walking on eggshells, and walking around very quietly, and we were more seen and not heard, kind of thing. So
Mhm.
it wasn't that, we'd have people sometimes come to the house and say to my mom, where are your kids? Have you got kids? Like, yeah, 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 they're in the garden. What do you mean they're in the garden, or even the next room? What do you mean they're in the next room? We can't hear them. Our kids are usually murdering each other, and you can hear them from the other end of the house, but we can't hear your kids. And it's the
Mhm.
environment that we grew up in. So I think part of that may have been actually introversion probably found me. And so
Mhm.
I felt at peace and at comfort with my own company and trying to stay out of the way and stay hidden. And that's how I've gone through life. That's how I've gone through my work. That's how I've approached things. That has, I guess, become me. And then and if you were to see the circle I hang around with, some of them are batshit crazy, and I love them for it. And some of them are just like, well, you're probably more reserved than I am, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yes.
and yet
Mhm.
somehow I don't get fed up of them, especially one of the things that you might find introverts say is, "Oh my God, extroverts get on my nerves. They get on my absolute nerves." And sometimes, yes, they do, but sometimes the introverts can get on my nerves as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes meeting a reflection of myself is actually, "Oh my God, this is so annoying. Please, I want to
Yeah.
shake you by the shoulders." So it's really a culmination of all my own experiences, and then all of a sudden coming to a point where those experiences, those stereotypes that I grew up with, were starting to be challenged. And what happened is there was this particular place I worked at, and for an introvert, my background actually is corporate learning and development. So in the UK, the term is learning and development. What that means is staff training. So I stand before groups of people delivering workshops, delivering presentations,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things I used to get questioned about, because the training was around interpersonal skills, communication, personality profiling assessments. I'm a certified DISC profile assessment facilitator as well. So talking about various personalities and personality traits and characteristics, talking about conflict resolution, communication skills, all this kind of thing coming together. And then people would say, hang on a second, but you just said you sit here on the scale. We thought you were an extrovert. And I'd say,
Mm-hmm.
no, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've just learned along the lines to stretch myself, to push myself, and the skills that are otherwise known to come quite easily and quite naturally to the extrovert, i.e., standing before a group of people, socializing, networking, talking to strangers, perhaps doing sales and marketing. Those are the things I've said, well, hang on, if this is the skill I want to have, I need to make up my mind. I either push through that discomfort
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or I play to the stereotype and stick with it. And so I chose to push against it. Um, and hope, I mean, I'm not saying I'm, the best incredible introvert out there, but I think when an individual pushes past what holds them back, they push past stereotypes, they push back against things that they've always known to be true, and then realize, hang on a second, there might not be some truth in this. Perhaps I should challenge it and poke and prod at that discomfort. I think anyone, whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, an ambivert, who can do that, that's an incredible thing to get through. And so I came up with Incredible Introverts for those individuals who want to be able to push past those discomforts, who want to be able to challenge those stereotypes and break those stereotypes and not live, in a boxed up world of stereotypes, who want to be able to show their face on camera, who want to be able to do public speaking, who want to be able to socialize and at networking events, for example. For those
Yeah.
individuals who want to do that, Incredible Introverts is there for them.
Yes, that is amazing. So this weekend I was at a conference in LA. And again, I am an introvert. And the more you talk, yes, I do believe so. One of the things, if you're new to me, audience, or if you've been around, what I work to do is identify where particular traumas or experiences have kind of embedded themselves in us that show up in how we present to the world, right? So for you, this, even with how you recognize that, no, I probably am an introvert because of this action and that has led to this thing. And for me, the alignment aspect is, how are you designed to be? Because just because we were necessarily designed some way at soul level doesn't mean that we are living in that path because of experiences, choices, all of the things that go into that. And so in me trying to help people understand the root of why they're showing up a particular way, it allows us to get to the alignment of who you are, because that's the easiest way. And I'm at this conference this weekend, and this lady says to me, we were talking, and she said that she thinks she became an introvert during the pandemic,
Okay.
because prior to that, she was like, she was outgoing, that was her thing. And in the pandemic, being forced to kind of find that solitude, and year 2 and then year 3, now she's
Mhm.
like, she works from home. And so the reverse of being out and dealing with people is actually a lot for her. But what she said was how she perceives the kind of introvert extroversion expression is, or experience is, where do you get your energy?
Yeah,
Right? She says that the
absolutely.
extrovert goes out and like that
Yeah,
invigorates them, right? They
yeah,
need that energy. And the
absolutely.
introvert is not that you can't do those things. It's really just that it takes more energy. And for
Yes.
me, I so resonated with that because like you, who when you were in corporate America, you did this thing where you had to be up and present in front of tons of
Yeah.
people. At my job, I literally deal with people all the time, and you would
Yeah.
never know I deal with donor relations. I'm managing workshops where it's like 250 people, and I have to stand up there and talk, and I'm a performer. And so none of those things scream introvert.
Very
And I
true.
always say it's not that I can't do it, I just have to mentally prepare. I literally have
Yes.
to dig deep
Yeah.
to make it happen. And then when it's over, I need that time
Yeah.
to go back because I've expended all of my energy.
It is.
So
It's a response to stimulus, external stimulus or
yeah.
stimuli, rather. That's exactly what it is. Your brain, the introvert's brain, is, you know, able to. It gets overwhelmed, overloaded with external stimuli. And so, although we can handle it, we need to go away after a little while and just maybe close the door, put ourselves into a quiet room, not necessarily a dark room, we're not vampires, but into a quiet room, just to recalibrate,
Yes.
realign our chakras, however you want to put it, but just to re-energize. Whereas the extroverted individual, put them into a quiet room for a while and it'll just drive them nuts because they say, no, my energy comes from other people.
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
and that's really it's the reaction to sort of external and internal stimuli.
Yes. So what are some like tips or ways that you help people? Well, first in the assessment, you talked about kind of the Jungian four types of introverts, or yeah, of how that shows up. But is it necessary to understand the way that your introversion shows up in order to kind of move past being the introvert?
So it's necessary to have a really good understanding and appreciation of emotional intelligence. And that's one of the things that I have delivered training on countless times, as areas of emotional intelligence and also neuroscience and understanding the brain and how the brain is wired. And so we go off experiences when we're, when we're babies, and even as adults, I mean, we've got billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of bits of information coming into the frontal lobe, and this front part of the brain is making sense of all the bits of information that are coming through to us. And as we grow up from, from infancy, through to junior stage, through to teens, our brain, we start to understand, we learn that, this is a table and this is a wall and this is a door and this is a chair and this is mom and dad and whoever else. And so there are many things that come at us when we see them visually, or we hear the sound, or we taste something. Once it becomes familiar to us, the brain hasn't got to process it that much. It's kind of like, oh, I know this, I hold this to be true, file it away. Now I want to deal with everything that I've never come across before. Because what I also need to understand is, are we safe or are we in danger? And
Mhm.
that's where then the emotional part of the brain will also kick in, say, no, 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 I don't know this, I don't know this. Let's not be rational, let's be irrational.
Mhm.
Let's hide in a room, or let's do something. And so, for people who grow up to be more towards the introverted side of the scale, some new experiences where it's putting themselves out there is, in a form, the brain saying, no, I want to stay back and protect myself. And it's about understanding that this goes back eons ago, in the days of, the hunter-gatherer days,
Mhm.
of when there was a real danger. And when you were out there hunting, you had to be mindful of all of your surroundings to know that, am I the hunter or am I going to be hunted? So
Mhm.
the brain was on high alert, and millions of years later, we still got that little bit of archaic wiring inside of us. And so it still works on the premise of, am I in danger?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it's understanding that actually, probably 99.999% of the time, we're not in danger. We're sitting in our own homes, or we're sitting with friends and family. We're not in any danger. And it's retraining the brain to understand. It's unlearning everything before, and setting a new benchmark for the brain. When we go through certain experiences and those experiences are repeated, whether it's as a result of it happening to us or something we've done and then we keep doing it again and again and again, that sets a benchmark for our brain. And that benchmark is, oh, okay, whenever this scenario turns up, I do this,
Mhm.
which can eventually be sabotaged depending on what the scenario is and what our reaction is to it. It can be self sabotage. It could be because we didn't know any better. It could be a whole lot of reasons. But essentially, it sets a benchmark for our brain. And that's why we end up, like they say, you keep making the same mistake again and again. It's because the benchmark's been set and the brain says, last time this happened, we did this.
Mhm.
So the next time you stand up before a group of people or you go networking and you remember the embarrassment perhaps that happened once before, or you remember that you were left alone and you didn't know how to navigate it, and that anxiety and those emotions creep back in because your brain doesn't just remember the event, it also remembers and stores the emotions that came with it. And so we end up repeating that pattern, and it's finding a way to tame and to let the emotional part of our brain know that it's okay, we are safe. Yes, I understand. This is a frightening experience, or you're feeling anxious. We're feeling like this at the moment, but know that we are safe and we're going to try something different for a different result, for a different outcome. It's once you start then getting a different outcome and you realize, huh, that wasn't so bad after all. Why didn't I do that
Mhm. Mhm.
weeks
Mhm.
before, months before? Why didn't I? We usually kick ourselves and think, oh, it wasn't that bad.
Mhm.
That's what happens. And then that sets the new benchmark for the brain. Because then the next time, well, actually, I did that last time. It wasn't so bad. And so you go and do that again. And then that helps reinforce it. It doesn't mean that being an introvert is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's like we said, it's a response to stimuli. It's just understanding where you sit on the scale of introversion. And so the reason I sort of, one of the things about previous, philosophers and theorists, etc., is at that time they worked with the information they had
Mhm.
available to them at that time.
Yeah.
As we've come forward in time, we've realized actually, as human beings, we're not as easy to work out as we think we are. The brain is the most complicated, the most complex item known to man in the entire universe. We are not simple. We are complex human beings.
Mhm.
Even if the brain was completely simplified by, God knows how much, we would still be far too simple to understand it. And so it's knowing that we've come a long way now. There's more information available. And it's one of the things actually I've noticed with being a certified DISC personality profile assessment trainer is that depending on which sort of becomes your primary personality trait, even the introverts, the strongest people who sit towards the introverted side of the scale, actually do have sort of stretch capacity, which can actually take them to the extroverted side of the scale.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we've all got that capability within us to do, as I said earlier, what comes naturally to the extrovert. We're just either not aware of it, we're not realizing it, or we're just so afraid we default back. And sometimes we're all going to default back to your main personality stance, which
Mhm.
isn't a bad thing.
Mhm.
But if that is holding you back from your own progression, whether it's personal progression, whether it's benefiting and progressing your own health, your mental health, your emotional health, your business, whatever it is, then that's not a good thing.
Yes, I think that that right there is the key point, right? Identifying what's holding you back. And, again, we're talking to all of you out there who are high professional, overachieving women. And we know that even though in order typically to become that high achieving person, right, we do subdue or suppress this notion of introversion to the best of our ability, because in order to kind of move ahead and get forward, there are just some aspects of introversion that doesn't naturally help us in the
Yeah,
work field, same thing.
workplace. Yeah,
But in that, if you stop and reflect, you can probably still identify where there are aspects of this that are holding you back,
yeah,
right? Is it being too scared to go and ask for, or set up the conversation to ask for what you are worth?
yeah,
Right? Is it the inability to kind of hold space and create boundaries for yourself so
yeah.
that you are not as overworked,
Yes,
right, as you
absolutely.
need to be,
Yeah,
right? All of
absolutely.
those things kind of play into this. And I think another thing is this notion of being shy. It's like, oh, this person is shy. And I don't necessarily perceive shy and introversion to be the same thing.
They've
And
been, yeah,
yeah, so
they've
you can
essentially
talk a little bit about
redefined.
that.
Yeah,
But
so shyness has actually been redefined as actually a mild form of anxiety. So it's starting to fall under mental health instead. So if we really need to be mindful, because one of the things we all do, we're guilty of, and we've probably had it said about ourselves as well as children. Oh, she's shy.
yes,
Oh, he's shy. Oh, he's just shy. And then you grow up constantly hearing you're shy, you're shy, you're shy. And the brain starts to believe it because it's constantly being told it. It's repetition. Like we said,
yes,
it's a benchmark that's been set for the brain. And so it believes, hey, I'm shy.
yes.
And if you're going to keep, at that, what we're forgetting is that then defines you into your adult years. So
Hmm.
shyness has now been redefined and is seen more as a mild form of anxiety. Anxiety falls under mental health. So shyness and introversion are not the same thing. Introverts can have a mild form of anxiety. They can have strong levels of anxiety, but then that negates the ambiverts and the extroverts. That's saying that they can never experience anxiety. They can
Hmm.
never experience a mild form of anxiety. They can. It may manifest in different ways. It may be
That's
triggered
very
from
interesting.
different reasons,
Thank you.
but they are not, it's the introversion and shyness, they're not synonymous with each other. They're two separate things. And that can be something that anyone can go through, irrespective of personality scale.
Yes, thank you. That's definitely new for me. Thank you for that. So with now this just brings up the notion of the ambivert, right? Because if introversion exists on the scale, and introversion, extroversion are the opposite ends of the scale, how does the ambivert play? Is it just on the scale on the way, or is it its actual own thing as well?
Ambiverts are these lucky ass people that sit in the middle and have the best of both worlds. You lucky devils, you lot. And so you can have them that, sometimes they prefer to just, spend time with a one or two very, very close friends and have that more intimacy with their friendships. And then, maybe need to go and spend some time alone as well just to recharge, or they can be the ones that are like, yeah, fine, we're going to go out and hang about and I want socializing. They can be the ones who can be at a party and with loads of different people and can get on with new faces, but might even decide to just relax and stick to the people that they know.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got the best of both worlds. Now, they too, depending, you can maybe have one that veers a little bit more towards the introverted side or a little bit more towards the extroverted side. So, depending on which side they veer towards as well,
Mhm, mhm,
will define sort of their strengths
mhm,
more towards one and the other. But because they are quite close to the center, if not dead on in the center, they can pick from both, the best of both worlds. I say they have the best of both worlds. They can pick from the best of both worlds, and they can also understand both personalities, um, because they can empathize with them better. Whereas I often found when delivering in-person workshops that there's a big misunderstanding gap between those who, when you do the profile assessment, you realize the reason that there's a clash between these individuals is they sit at two opposite ends of the personality scale. And often I would be delivering workshop and talking about conflict and conflict resolution. And often you have individuals coming and saying, the reason I brought myself here is because I want to understand how to deal with a difficult person. I want to understand how to deal with an argumentative person, stubborn person. And most of these individuals were introverted individuals. And so once we went through the workshops, the DISC workshops, emotional intelligence, all these things, we went through all of them, they'd realize, oh, so it was never really conflict that we're having. We're two people speaking a different language, and we're not understanding each other.
mhm,
I'm thinking that person's being stubborn, but they're actually thinking I'm being stubborn and I was always part of the problem. And it's fantastic to see that result, because by the time they walk out the door, they realize, oh, now I know what I've got to do.
mhm,
I need to stop staying stuck in my habits. I need to meet the other person part way. And actually, they were never that monster that I've held them to be all this time. It was just a misunderstanding. It was never conflict. It was purely not understanding each other's languages. And it was interesting because it would be the extroverted individuals that would come to the sessions to say, the reason I'm here is because I've recognized there seems to be some sort of mismatch, and I want to know how to meet my people in the middle. The team
Mm,
I'm responsible for, they're mostly, I get the feeling they're mostly introverted individuals. I
mhm,
want to understand how I can meet them in the middle and serve them better. Whereas
mhm.
introverted individuals usually came with kind of a more negative outlook on the extroverts,
Hmm.
which was very interesting to see.
That
Um,
is that is very interesting. So in addition to the DISC assessment and the emotional kind of intelligent assessment, how else do you help those that you work with really be that incredible introvert?
So I have a program. It's a 8 to 12 month program, depending on how intensive it is, and it's an incubator program. It's called Introverse, and it's essentially it's a universe of introverts. Yeah, it's our own little universe in there, and it's I think somebody once described it to me as, I mean, I can go into the technical details of what it is, but somebody once described it as me as it's more of a transformational experience from cocoon to butterfly. And it really is. Because what I do is I start off on the foundation, and the very, very, very foundation is me, myself, and I. So we look at the individual
Mm-hmm.
right from a foundational basis, help them to understand their brain, help them to understand where they sit on the personality scale, help them to understand and discover their strengths and the development areas as well. So we're going to look at, what we probably want to avoid and not look at.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also subconscious recoding as well. And that is going in and weeding out what has actually happened. That is the root cause of what's holding you back, weeding that out, banishing it, not letting that seed get replanted back in your mind. It's something where the individual, the introverts who come to the table, have to be prepared to do the work as well. Um, I can give you all the tools and all the techniques and the hand holding and support, but the individual has to be prepared to go through those moments of potential discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
and also having a mirror held up to you. And this is probably making it sound like, oh my good gosh, this is going to be a horrible experience. I went through this myself, and it was the best thing I ever went through because of who I am today and where I've come through today. And I have a few people to thank who I don't really know them on a personal basis, but it was through observation that made me realize, hang on a second, there's something, those guys are introverts and I'm an introvert, but there's something different about the way we are approaching things and managing things and navigating through this thing called life and work and business. And so what I did was I looked back into everything that I've been through, everything that I've learned and I've done, and then I packaged it all up into what is today Introverse.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really does take you from cocoon stage to sort of metamorphosis stage into butterfly stage, where once you come out, whatever it is that was holding you back in the various modules, and for example, it could be camera confidence, for example, or it could be public speaking. It could be a lot of introverted individuals. They don't see themselves as business owners and business leaders. It's, I have a business, but actually it's a hobby business. And that's it. It's okay, but who are you in the business?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, they need to embody what I call the CEO persona. And they think a CEO is only a person who sits at the top of a food chain in a huge high-rise glass building, whereas it's far from it. The CEO is to have a certain set of understanding and responsibilities and abilities and skills to do that, but the knowledge to also know when to delegate and how to delegate and where to go to and what. And so it's taking them through all of these things that are holding them back in having a successful personal life or a successful business even, and then bringing them right throughout the other side where they can actually show their faces on camera, for example, or stand before a group of people, or go and attend networking, or go and negotiate their prices and their rates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, let me tell you, I am I believe that we learn through life experiences, right? Kind of that watching or seeing the gap between, it's like, wait, this is where I am and this is where I want to be. And then sometimes in there we figure out how to get to that thing we want to be. That route definitely works, right? But there is time. And so I value when there are systems and structures in place. I believe we're either going to pay with time or we're going to pay with money.
Yes.
That is my whole thing, right? And so it's like, in this particular situation, which one do I want? Do I want to pay with time or do I want to pay with money? And so I believe that, programs like yours that have structure, that have a setup, that have someone helping to guide you, allows you to be able to kind of shortcut that amount of time. You still got to do it because, like you said, the personal work aspect, there is no magic button.
Nope.
Right. For us to, particularly things that have been hardwired and processed and set in places, what I call the program, right? There is no magic button to undo the program. You have to identify the program. You have to identify why the program is there and continuing to work and exist, and then make the choice that you want something different, and then do the actions that support that new choice, right? So there is no way to circumvent that. But what you can do is join community and join groups and join different programs that allow you to kind of move through that process a lot faster. So I thank you for the work that you do, and I hope that someone, if you're interested in learning more about this or wanting to join and just get information, where can people find you? Where are you located? Like, where are you located? Tell the people where you're located.
Technically, I'm in the UK, so you're welcome to come over. Otherwise, although we've got sunshine today, but it's not usually sunny. But otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn. So my name's spelt as it is, Saira Nisa. I'm on LinkedIn. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. My website is www.incredibleintroverts.com. You're welcome to come onto my website. You're welcome to also I invite you to take a mini quiz. It's a fun quiz to discover your introvert archetype. And so this archetype is off the back, really, of my understanding and lessons of the different places that you can sit on the personality scale that actually gives you a slightly different type of introvert, because no two introverts are the same. And that's one of the things that helped me understand that, hang on a second, you know what? They're introverts, I'm introverts. What's going on here? There's something going on here. And so find out where you sit on within the 7 introvert archetypes, take that quiz. And LinkedIn, and also I am on Facebook as well, or Facebook, affectionately known as Fakebook, again under my name, Saira Nisa. So you can get in touch with me via any of those means as well.
Well, thank you again so much for sharing your time and your energy with us today. I appreciate it. And everyone that's out there, remember, you deserve to live a life that lights you up from the inside out. And I am here to help you on that journey. So until next time, stay aligned, liberated, and abundant. Bye.